The tall tale of Tiny Tampon Tim. Governor Tim Walz is responding to the criticism by the Trump administration and entirely focusing on the wrong thing. Also, they caught the alleged pipe bomber in January 6th. The worst day in American history if you're a lib. Except for, why didn't they catch the guy for 5 years? That's interesting in and of itself. Also, an American citizen was detained, and the way that the libs are fired up about this is hilarious and nonsensical, and so many U.S. companies are saying no Americans. We are not hiring Americans at all. A great piece in the Washington Free Beacon that I want to discuss with you here on Turning Point tonight. My name is Joe Bob. Thanks so much for tuning in. Together, we are charting the course for America's cultural comeback. This is Turning Point tonight. TPT at tpusa.com is the email address if you'd like to send along your thoughts, comments, concerns, even criticisms. There's some funny criticisms in there. Maybe we'll get to those funny ones later on in the show. We do a mailbag segment of the show at the very end. If you'd like to have a chance at being included, one, you have to send an email to tpt at tpusa.com. Two, if your email is disgusting, vile, bigoted, racist, all of the things, you actually have a better chance at getting your email read here on the show. tpt at tpusa.com is the email address. Also, go subscribe to our Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel. Also, all of the social media platforms. We do an extra segment of the show generally Monday through Thursday. We may do one today as well, but you can only get that segment on our social media platforms. The hack is Joe Bob is objectively a weird name. One grandpa was Joe, the other one was Bob. That's a brown guy with a hillbilly Alabama backwoods name. But if you just type in JOBOB on pretty much any social media platform, you will be able to find anything Turning Point Tonight related. So go do that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rumble, X, Facebook, Instagram, all of the social media accounts. Do it today. Don't be left out. That was an odd. I was going to say, speaking of being left out, Tiny Tim Walz, Tiny Tampon Tim Walz, the tall tale of him. He was probably left out of, I don't know, the advanced math classes in high school because he's not very bright. But we all know this. We're aware of the governor of Minnesota's act. We are aware that he's apparently not gay. Jury's still out on that, I think. But again, not the conversation we're going to have here today. But speaking of the rampant fraud that has been going on in the great state of Minnesota, $1 billion being stolen primarily from Somali immigrants in the country that have been fraudulently stealing money from the American taxpayers to the tune of $1 billion. We talked yesterday about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. What did she know? I think probably a lot, but we'll get to some of those questions more in mailbag, tpt at tpusa.com. We get to that in the last segment. But also, we have to focus on Tiny Tampon Tim. The governor of Minnesota is also the one who has overseen the government during this rampant fraud. The 2024 probe into the state's Office of Legislative Auditor found the Minnesota Department of Education, and this is again recapping here, created opportunities for fraud under Governor Tampon Tim Walz by failing to act on warning signs with Feeding Our Future, the organization that the majority of this fraud was delved out under. State officials felt that they needed to handle Feeding Our Future carefully after the group was accused by the Minnesota Department of Education of racial discrimination in 2020. If you raise a red flag and say, hey, a bunch of Somalis are stealing all this money, that's racist, according to several of the people in the employment of the Minnesota government and therefore under the leadership of Tampon Tim. The auditors found that the threat of legal consequences and negative media attention affected some of the Minnesota Department of Education's decisions. You never want to see that happening, but again, all happened under Tampon Tim's leadership. We all know this, again, kind of recapping here. The U.S. House of Representatives launched an investigation into Governor Tim Walz's handling of the fraud cases. That happened on Wednesday, to which I and everyone with a brain says, yes, good, we probably should investigate. Hey, why did all this happen under your leadership, especially considering the fact that he's seeking a third term as governor of Minnesota? President Trump called Minnesota a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity, and this week launched an enhanced immigration operation in the Minnesota St. Paul area. We're going to get to, in the third segment of the show, the immigration problems that have arisen with the Trump administration trying to enforce the law. And when I say problems, I mean they're lib problems, and therefore they're not actually problems. They're just kind of made up problems. But again, we'll get to that in just a little bit. So the question is, how has Tiny Tampon Tim, there's triple T. How has Tiny Tampon Tim responded to this? Well, not well. Instead of addressing any of the accusations of fraud, and instead of taking accountability, he's decided to focus on something else that is seriously retarded. And I'm using that literally as a quote from the President of the United States. If you remember, President Trump's masterful media manipulation that basically used a word that libs really, 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 really hate, drew a bunch of attention to this. We talked about this, I believe, on Monday, but if President Trump had just said, hey, there's a bunch of fraud going on here, all of the lib media would have ignored this entirely. But because of the brilliance of the media mind of the President of the United States, he threw Tim Walz, who is seriously retarded. Then all of the media went, oh my gosh, he said the R word, which caused everybody to talk about this story, which is hilarious and a master stroke in the mind of President Trump and his ability to goad the media into something that, honestly, that part of it doesn't really matter. What does matter is the $1 billion stolen by a bunch of Somalis, the majority of them being Somalis, in the government of Minnesota. Minnesota officials and members of the state's Somali community have criticized President Trump's comments, while stating the fraud is totally disconnected with the demonizing of an entire group of people who came here fleeing a civil war, and has created a vibrant and fraudulent, he didn't say that part, a vibrant community in the state of Minnesota. Now, how does Governor Walz respond to that? Well, there's a clip of him saying how he has been impacted by the seriously retarded claim by President Trump. He has been impacted greatly by President Trump accurately describing his mental capacity. Watch this clip 6.
Are you okay with the president calling our neighbors garbage? Are you okay with him referring to Minnesota as a hellhole, unfactually untrue? This creates danger. And I'll tell you what, in my time on this, I'd never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people. This is shameful. And I have yet to see an elected official, a Republican elected official, say, you're right, that's shameful. He should not say it. So look, I'm worried. We know how these things go. They start with taunts, they turn to violence. So deeply concerned.
And what's the best example of that, Governor Tim? Is the best example of words then escalating to violence something that libs have all used, calling conservatives Nazis or fascists? Where have we seen that become violent in any way, shape, or form? You know what definitely is pretty much a stretch to get to is using the R word, as Tampon Tim says is happening now in front of his house. Couple points on that. First thing, I don't know if that's I don't know if I actually believe that that's happening. So he's saying that people are driving by the governor's residence in Minnesota, rolling down their window and yelling at him, again, accurately describing his mental faculties. That's happening. And okay, so let's just be charitable here and say, yes, it is happening. Okay, well, I can't imagine that it wasn't happening prior to this also. If in fact it is happening, and we take the governor at his word, you're willing to tell me that in the last 7 years that he's been the governor of Minnesota, nobody has driven past the governor's mansion and yelled out accurate depictions of his mental acuity? I'd be willing to bet that if it is true, it's been happening for a very long time, and I'm not even convinced entirely that it is true. That seems like a gigantic waste of time, because remember, libs are the ones that take their time out of their day to go protest, riot in the streets, burn down businesses, burn cars, fight cops, all of that stuff. They're the ones that take their time out of the day to do that. Conservatives, generally speaking, are busy because we have jobs and families and better things to do with our time. My lawn's got to get mowed. I don't have time to drive by the governor's mansion and yell epithets to him. It's just, I sure would love to, but I just don't have the time. I'm sorry, Governor Walz. Conservatives are generally busy. Now, what I thought was most fascinating about that is his wife had a clip famously I believe this was in 2020, where she was being interviewed on some of the other things that are going on outside of the governor's residence in Minnesota. If you recall, Minneapolis specifically, practically burnt down after the death of George Floyd. And how did the governor's wife respond to that at the time? Well, take a trip through memory lane with me. Cut 7.
I would say those first days, when there were riots, I could smell the burning tires. And that was a very real thing. And I kept the windows open for as long as I could because I felt like that was such a touchstone of what was happening.
So that is Governor Tim's alleged wife. Again, jury's still out on whether or not he is straight. Again, they've been married for a while. I'm inclined to believe that is the case, but given the way that he carries himself and the actions and hand gestures, I'm still not entirely sure there. But that is his wife when responding to other things that were going on outside of the governor's mansion, which actually definitely did happen. And instead of responding by saying, hey, this is bad too, right? Governor Walz says people yelling mean words at him through their car windows as they drive by, that's terrible. However, his wife, and I can only assume by extension also him, when people were burning cars and tires and doing burnouts and burning down businesses and fighting cops and lighting things on fire and doing all the things that libs do, that's fine. Not only was it fine, she enjoyed it. She really, really appreciated the smell of burning tires in the evening. It's like a scented candle almost. Maybe producer Glenn, can we chalk that? Can we sell tire burning smell scented candles to the governor's wife over there in Minnesota? Because she really likes the smell. Like, what an odd thing to say. I could smell the tires burning, and my first thought wasn't, oh my God, what's happening? My first thought was, I want to keep the windows open as long as possible so I can experience this cultural movement that is besieging our beloved hometown. Okay, so if that is how the governor and his wife view riots, I have a difficult time thinking that a word which I'm not even, again, sure that is actually being yelled at his window and at his house, and if it is, I'm not sure it's the first time. I'm sure this has been happening for a very long time. I'm not sure that equivalency makes a ton of sense. If a word is bad, but burning tires outside of the house is not only great, but I wafted the smell of burning tires. I couldn't get enough. I kept the windows open for as long as I possibly could, which honestly might have led to, might have led to the mental retardation of Tim Walz. Maybe smelling burning car tires is not good for your brain cells there, Timmy. I don't know. I apologize for anybody who may take offense to that. I'm just trying to put all the pieces together. The president accurately described the governor of Minnesota, and I'm trying to figure out how could that have happened? Maybe it was the smell of burning tires that him and his wife loved so very much. I mean, this is like, imagine missing your mortgage, right? Because we've really buried the lead here. The big thing is that a bunch of people stole $1 billion from the Minnesota taxpayers, and again, by extension, through federal subsidies, yours and my taxpayers. Completely glossed over because Governor Tim really only cares about saying the R word, which is like missing payments on your mortgage. And then your wife says, hey, got a letter on our door saying we're being evicted. Should we like talk about this? Should we figure this out? Should we get to the bottom of how this maybe doesn't happen going forward? And then your answer being, yeah, but our neighbor called me ugly. So we should talk about that more. He did? He called you ugly? Yeah. Okay, well, fine. Let's ignore the eviction notices. Yeah, forget it. Don't even pay attention to paying the mortgage. Let's dig down on why this neighbor called me ugly. That is basically the equivalent of what is going on in Minnesota. We got a lot of emails from people in Minnesota saying, hey, I do live in Minnesota, trust me, outside of the metropolitan areas, it's actually beautiful. And I actually agree. I spent some time in Minnesota driving around, looking at the lakes. I think I got to about 8,562 of the lakes. Not all 10,000. Didn't get to all of them, but I did make a decent dent in seeing the Great Lakes of Minnesota. Not the Great Lakes. You know what I'm talking about. But what was I even talking about there? Bottom line, ridiculous on all fronts, and a clear and evident attempt to divert the conversation away from, again, $1 billion getting stolen from taxpayers. Whew. Email tpt@tpusa.com. Do you like the smell, the aroma of burning tires? Would that sell if we put that up in the Turning Point store? Would that sell burning tire candles? I feel like it might, and maybe some libs will even join in the purchasing of that, because I don't know, if they're anything like Tim Walz's wife, they love the smell. Let us know. tpt@tpusa.com. Should we start selling burning tire candles? We got a lot to get to. The pipe bomber was found, arrested, and arraigned today, which is a really interesting story if you start digging into, hey, how did it take this long to catch this guy? We'll get to that. Also, there's a big viral video going around that ABC News did a big, long piece on, and we'll bring you a lot of the portions of that. But the narrative around what is clearly and obviously a crazy person taking a crazy stance, maybe not to the fault of her own, maybe it's because she's convinced by the lying media that that's the position she should take. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about it here. We'll get to that later on. Also, there are companies in the United States of America that are saying on their job application sites, we are not looking for Americans. Should that be allowed? A great piece in the Washington Free Beacon that we'll also get to, as well as your emails, tpt@tpusa.com, in the mailbag segment of the show. Send along your thoughts, comments, concerns. Also, go subscribe to our YouTube channel, Turning Point Tonight on YouTube. Just type in JOBOB. You'll be able to find us pretty much anywhere. We will be right back after the break. Don't go away.
Hello. This girl, sorry guys, this girl put the fire out with a water bottle, but it was starting to get pretty big.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know where that is, but it looked like a small fire. I don't know who started that fire, probably a homeless person. Maybe it was Tim Walz's wife. She likes the smell of burning things outside of her house. I don't know who started the fire, but a guy called 911. Hey, there's a fire going on, instead of just like stamping it out. And then some girl comes out of the Walgreens and just like pours a bottle of water on it. There's a lot to be said there. We could probably do an entire 3-hour podcast on the degrading of what men are willing to do and able to do. Not conservative men, but lib men, to the extent that they exist, are not willing to do to protect themselves and their immediate vicinity. That was very odd. Speaking of protecting, I'm not sure if this is a great transition. Finally, the DC pipe bomber was caught. The January 6th. Now remember, this is the worst day in American history if you're a lib and you want to hit conservatives. Generally speaking, it was a very peaceful day, and there were clearly some bad moments going on there. But thank goodness the Biden administration prosecuted a bunch of Midwestern grandmothers who were strolling around the White House. Thank goodness they put all of those people in solitary confinement. Thank goodness they were held without trials for months and months, sometimes even years and years, and sometimes to right now. Well, not right now, because President Trump pardoned pretty much everybody that was prosecuted or persecuted by the Biden administration. But in all of that, in all of those political persecutions that led to prosecutions, again, of Midwestern grandmothers who just decided to take a touring trip around the Capitol building, in all of that, they never found the guy who actually tried to set off pipe bombs at both the Republican and Democrat headquarters. I think people kind of missed that, libs missed that part. They say, oh, there was a pipe bomb found at the DNC headquarters. Yes, that is bad. Also, there was same guy put the same thing at the Republican headquarters. So to attribute a side to this guy would be pretty difficult. And I do think we actually can. We've got a lot to go on here. We can probably attribute a side, and I guarantee you it's not the conservative side of the aisle that I think this guy sits on. Now, I want to first start off by showing this clip of Jake Tapper on CNN. He unfortunately, through no fault of his own, missed the entirety of the mental decline of Joe Biden, and thankfully wrote a book earlier this year detailing the fact that the media missed that entirely, including himself. Who honestly, who could have seen Joe Biden's mental decline, despite all of the consistent evidence to that point? But this is how Jake Tapper described the arrest of the pipe bomber, the alleged pipe bomber, would-be pipe bomber of the January 6th whole thing. Watch this, clip 8.
Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning.
Yes, a clear, evidently white man, guy Brian Cole. Why did he even have to say that? I guess I don't quite understand why that was even relevant to the story at all. Let's just say it was a white guy. Why would that matter? It doesn't matter to me at all. Now, if it was a person illegally in the country from a different country, yeah, maybe you mentioned the fact that, hey, this is a Middle Eastern person who came into the country illegally and set off pipe bombs or was trying to set off pipe bombs. Yeah, maybe you would mention it then because the illegal nature of it is relevant to the story. But outside of that, just declaring the race, one, is stupid, and two, if you're going to do it, at least get it right. Mr. Tapper has been lambasted, rightly so, across all of the media platforms for saying that. A suspect has been arrested after nearly 5 years. Brian Cole Jr., 30, of Woodbridge, Virginia, was arrested yesterday morning. He faces charges for planting pipe bombs outside both the Democratic and Republican National Committees on January 5th, 2021, just hours before January 6th took place. Cole made his initial appearance Friday afternoon in D.C. federal court. If convicted on the current 2 counts, he faces between 15 and 30 years in prison, which in my opinion is far too short. If you're planning to kill multiple people, I've never understood the discrepancy between murder and attempted murder, right? I don't quite understand why the penalties for those two things are different. If a court finds you guilty of attempting to murder somebody, why is that less of a punishment if you don't succeed? Right? Like if you I don't know, if your plans fall apart or you miss the shot or whatever it is that you're doing, why is that for some reason less? Why is there a possibility that this guy only gets 15 years because he failed at something, right? The intent is still there. I've never understood that. I still don't understand that. But going back to this particular case, officials say that more charges are possible and could potentially be seen in this particular case. According to investigators, the process of producing and placing the bombs started back in 2019. Bank and cell phone data were used to link Cole to both the production and placement of the devices. Now, there's a lot of things going on here. The main and primary question that I think we should all be asking is, how did they not catch this guy under the Biden administration? The FBI leadership reviewed massive amounts of data, in both leadership sides, in the Biden administration and now in the Trump administration. Investigators examined 3 million lines of evidence, and thankfully, Deputy Director Dan Bongino led the effort to re-examine every single piece of evidence, which led to the arrest of the alleged January 6th pipe bomber. The question is, why wasn't that done during the Biden administration? FBI Director Kash Patel mentioned this several times on several different media outlets yesterday. I want to play you a short clip. This is Cut 9, Kash Patel, also kind of asking the same question. How did this not happen? Play this Cut 9.
They deliberately did not want to solve this. I mean, this was challenging, but it was solvable, right?
In my opinion, the prior administration either was completely incompetent or intentional in their weaponization of justice and law enforcement. And we know they have a track record of the latter with Arctic Frost and Russiagate and so many else. So I put this in that folder. What we did was we rejected and are in the process of destroying and leveling the weaponization of justice and law enforcement and delivering results for the American people.
So, I mean, he talks for a little bit longer. Basically, it kind of reiterates the main point of how did this not happen? Because, like we mentioned, they got the evidence. There was no new evidence. There was not a single piece of new evidence on this case that the FBI didn't already have, to make you wonder, well, why didn't they do what this FBI did to actually catch this guy? Because it's not like he's this mastermind criminal. The evidence shows that, okay, they used cell phone tracking data. There's a bunch of camera there that was able to lead to the arrest of this guy. And in addition to that, he bought all of the supplies at local hardware stores with a credit card. I don't know if you signed up for credit cards, but they're kind of tied to you. I guess, of course, if you're, a Nigerian scam artist or Somali scam artist, I don't know. Maybe the credit card isn't exactly tied to their name, but there's no indication that this was the case in this particular instance. So they had cameras, they had geo-tracking data, they had credit cards that he used to purchase the materials for this, and somehow over the head of the Biden FBI. How could that possibly have happened? Kash Patel accused the Biden administration of sheer incompetence or complete intentional negligence, which, I might add, brings us to the ever persistent question on this show. And you probably already saying, stupid or sinister? Those are the only two options here. Was the Biden administration completely incompetent, or were they averting their eyes intentionally? Now, as I stated yesterday, I kind of miss the old libs, because at least people like Nancy Pelosi, and I said this yesterday, are smart, and therefore you can rule out the stupid element and you can go straight to evil, right? It's either stupid or sinister. With her, she's not stupid, so it's clearly sinister. At the same time, in this point in time, the Biden administration's main priority when hiring anybody, from mid-level bureaucrats all the way up to the Supreme Court, was not based on performance. It was based on DEI. You've got an entire administration completely littered with DEI folks in there who didn't deserve the job but got it anyway because of their race, sexual orientation, or gender, or any of the other minoritizing things. All of those people got jobs, and therefore it's difficult to differentiate between whether or not, hey, this was a sinister plot to say, hey, this guy actually might not have been a conservative. He actually looks like he was a lib. His family owned a bail bond center, and they allegedly specialized in immigration bail bonds, so it doesn't really shout conservative, really. It kind of means lib. So you have that, which would make a lot of sense, except for the fact that Joe Biden hired people who could have been sniffing burnt tires. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows if this is a completely stupid and incompetent or more sinister approach? Hopefully we'll find out some of the answers to this question, why the Biden FBI was not able to track down a guy who we had a ton of data on. There was no new evidence. I think the more broad point here to be made is that leadership matters. The FBI, under the new leadership of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who Dan Bongino has been saying, we've got to do more on this particular case. Bongino has come out and said that they are pretty comfortable they have their guy. If it weren't for the leadership of the Trump FBI, none of this would have changed. It would have been political/legal malfeasance on so many different levels. But thankfully, we can attest to this particular fact: leadership matters. TBT at tbusa.com if you'd like to send along your thoughts, comments, concerns. If you were prosecuted, there's several people that watch this network that were politically prosecuted during the Biden administration for January 6th. Would you wish that maybe they would put the same amount, even like equal amount of effort into catching this guy. Would that have benefited really anybody? It seems like it would have. But of course they didn't. We have to ask the question why. Hopefully we will find out why. Coming up next, ABC News did it's a decently long clip. Well, I'm not going to set it up right now. It's a fascinating take and narrative on something that is so clearly one thing that they have entirely missed. Again, stupid or sinister, we always have to ask the question. That's coming up after the break. Also, U.S. companies are saying no Americans, which is concerning to say the least, and the mailbag segment of the show. tbt@tbusa.com if you'd like to be included in mailbag. Again, for the record, if your email is vile, disgusting, hateful, bigoted, we actually have a better chance of reading it on this show. So tbt@tbusa.com is the email address. Go subscribe to our Turning Point Tonight YouTube. Just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere on your social media platforms. You'll be able to find us, all of the Turning Point Tonight exclusive online content. Do it now. Don't be left behind. We will be right back. Don't go away.
You know the current climate that we are in. Who did you vote for in the 2024 election?
Put me out there. Are you some type of culprit or what's going on?
Answer the question.
Okay. Trump.
Why'd you pop?
That just would not work. I am a political activist. It's one of my biggest things. That's if you social media me with this name, you're going to see what I do. So there's no reason to be with someone like you.
Awesome.
I love that. And that guy's he's kind of like timid because, conservatives, not that we're timid about who we've voted for, but it doesn't matter as much to us. We live our lives independently and free from all of the other distractions in the political universe. And therefore, I voted for Trump. Doesn't really matter to me. And generally speaking, husbands make their wives more conservatives anyway. This is a dating show. And that lady, who, by the way, notwithstanding the whole political thing, I don't know if that was the best catch for you anyway, my dude. I think you really avoided a real kicker there. Fascinating. Yeah, conservatives have more lib friends than libs have conservative friends. That just data shows that consistently. But good on that guy saying, yeah, dude, I voted for Trump. Pound sand. I don't want to date you anyway. I love that. Speaking of libs taking a bad approach to things, yesterday there was a viral video going around out of Florida where immigration stopped some lady in a car and decided to have her exit the vehicle, and she was screaming and putting up a fit saying, "I'm a U.S. citizen, why are you doing this to me?" And the libs just had a field day with this. They're like, oh my gosh, can you believe what's happening here? I want to play you the clip that aired on ABC last night with David Muir, where they described this in just horrific and serious tones. How could this be happening? But of course, there's a pretty obvious and clear caveat to all of it. We'll explain after this clip 10.
Disturbing images tonight showing ICE agents dragging a woman from her car in Florida. She is heard screaming for help, telling authorities, "I'm a U.S. citizen." She was placed in handcuffs. She was a U.S. citizen, and what Homeland Security is now saying. Here's Victor Akendo with the video tonight.
Tonight, dramatic video showing a woman being pulled from a car during a border patrol operation in Key Largo, Florida, screaming she is a U.S. citizen. The woman pulled over during a traffic stop yesterday morning. Video capturing her struggling with law enforcement, who then pick her up and carry her to a grassy area where she is handcuffed. Despite screaming she is a citizen, the woman is restrained and carried into an unmarked vehicle. The Department of Homeland Security telling ABC News the woman was driving her boyfriend's car, who is an undocumented immigrant, stating she was removed from the vehicle and briefly held while her identity was confirmed. She was promptly released once her identity was confirmed. David, that video that shows the woman being pulled from the vehicle was filmed by a Miami Herald reporter. DHS confirmed she is, in fact, a U.S. citizen.
Who is telling these people that, hey, if you get pulled over, don't ask what the officers want. Don't cooperate with them. Make sure you throw a massive fit and scream, "I'm a U.S. citizen! Oh my gosh!" Because even they said at the end of the clip, She was released pretty immediately once they could identify her as an actual U.S. citizen. Therefore, all of the screaming didn't freaking matter. And why David Muir and the ABC News staff over there made it such a harrowing scene took place in Florida as a woman was pulled from her car screaming. She didn't have to be screaming. It's not part of the whole thing. You could have just, oh, hey, hi, officer. Ma'am, we're pulling you over because we believe that you may be an illegal immigrant. Oh, okay, cool. Let me get you all my documentation. Let me set this up. And oh, by the way, I know that I'm driving my boyfriend's car who is in the country illegally, which is why you stopped me, as that was probably explained to her. But good news, I'm not him. And I don't even know if what they should have done maybe is figured out where her boyfriend was through her. I don't know if you need to detain a person for that long to be able to do that. I don't know what the legal ramifications for that is. But the key point here is you don't have to panic. And I will say this, I'm not entirely sure if I even blame her entirely. Because if you watch lib media constantly that says ICE and immigration are picking up American citizens and sending them to Nicaragua, which is not happening, by the way, but if you believe that that's actually happening, yeah, you might actually be scared. And if you actually knew what was going on, if you paid attention to things, if you watched fantastic news channels like here on Real America's Voice, if you watch Turning Point tonight, you'll know that's not really that big of a problem. I shouldn't be concerned about this at all. If you're in the country legally, if you have legal status, if you haven't committed crimes, if you are an American citizen, you ain't got nothing to worry about. You know how many times I've been pulled over? Probably because I should have been pulled over, speeding or otherwise. You know what I don't do? I don't scream at the cops going, how? You don't have no reason. Why are you pulling me over? You don't have a reason to pull me over. You're a bad person. I go, oh, hello, officer. He's like, do you know that you were doing 80 miles an hour on a 65 mile an hour freeway? And I go, yeah, sorry about that. Most of the time they just say, oh yeah, you're free to go. If you don't panic for no reason, things are going to be fine. But for some reason, ABC decided to make this big, huge deal over this and continue to scare people because of, I don't know, that's the narrative and they want to stick to it. Speaking of immigration, the DHS actually released a press release today about the operation that's been going on in Minneapolis. ICE launched an operation, Metro Surge in Minneapolis, December 1st, just within days of the operation, according to DHS. ICE arrested multiple criminal illegal aliens that had been roaming the streets of Minneapolis, which is, they might have been burning the tires that Tim Walz's wife loves so very much. That's why they weren't cooperating, the Minnesota government, again, because they love the smell of burnt tires. The operation targeted what officials called the worst of the worst, including sex offenders, domestic abusers, and violent gang members. Among those arrested, at least 12 individuals with serious criminal convictions or charges were arrested, and they were in the country illegally. So, all of that is to say, ICE needs to do the job of getting people in this country illegally out of this country. Will that mean they stop people who are U.S. citizens? Yeah. Guess what? They wouldn't have to be as aggressive if the freaking Obama administration and the Biden administration actually enforced the border policy in this country, actually followed the law. They wouldn't have to be as aggressive. But you know what? Here's the situation that we're in. President Trump is trying to fix it, and mistakes are going to happen. And in 99.999% of cases, we've seen this in LA. Guy gets stopped by police. They say, hey, we've been told that you're here illegally. Guy says, oh, no, I was actually born and raised here. Here's my identification. Okay, cool. You're free to go. Which is exactly what happened to that lady. The screaming and crying about it didn't need to happen. And yet the libs pretend that this means something because they're trying to continue to lie to just about everyone. I want to save time for a mailbag here. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about U.S. companies that are not explicitly not hiring Americans. That is a damning story out of the Washington Free Beacon, as well as mailbag. tpt@tpusa.com is the email address if you'd like to send along your thoughts, comments, concerns. When you get pulled over by the cops, do you, A, cooperate and ask the police officer, hey, what is it that you need? Or do you panic, throw a fit, scream, and yell things so that people can catch it on camera. Generally speaking, what is it that you do? tpt@tpusa.com is the email address if you'd like to send along your thoughts. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away.
It's my book, Woke Eugenics, which how social justice is a mask for social Darwinism. And what I argue, in essence, is that wokeness is a selection event, that we become genetically extremely unhealthy as a consequence of the Industrial Revolution, and so all this mutation builds up, and it expresses itself in wokeness. Eventually, wokeness and proto-wokeness takes over the culture and pushes people on a maladaptive roadmap of life. All but the healthiest will be resistant to this, and so it's self-correcting. Those who would have been the normal pre-industrial population will survive this process because they will be the ones that will have children and things like this. And everybody else will be inculcated into not having children because of the environment, into delaying having children, or into transsexuality or whatever. So it is a self-correcting process.
Huh. I don't know who that guy is. I've never heard of his book, but that's a pretty compelling case. Yeah, wokeness kind of fixes itself because guess what? All of the wokies aren't having kids and aren't reproducing, and therefore it's a self-correcting process. I like that take. That's really interesting. Considering processes that do actually need correcting, this is from the Washington Free Beacon. We don't have a ton of time to get to this. No U.S. citizens meet the IT firms discriminating against Americans. This is disturbing. The problem is the Washington Free Beacon found that over 24 job postings since 2024 explicitly bar U.S. citizens from applying. Lance Soft is one of the companies, posted a Santa Clara tech firm, posted a job stating no USC/GC, which excludes U.S. citizens and green card holders entirely. And these posts are appearing on LinkedIn and Glassdoor. There's a lot of different issues. We don't have a ton of time to get to all of these. There's the H-1B problem, which was created in the 90s to make up for labor shortages. It has been used way too aggressively to exclude Americans from actual jobs. But again, don't have a ton of time to get into all of that. Well, yeah, time constraint. I rambled on too much earlier in the show, but I also feel like that was necessary. I think the mockery of Tim Walz and his burning, tire-smelling wife was necessary to kind of bring the point home. But the bottom line is there are multiple companies in the United States that are explicitly and expressly posting jobs, not just like on the dark web, which is, I don't even know what that is, but that feels like something mysterious. It's not even on that. It's on Glassdoor and LinkedIn, basically saying no U.S. citizens, no green card holders. We don't want them. That should not be allowed in any way, shape, or form in this country. All job opportunities should be available to Americans and Americans first. And if for some reason there is 0 Americans that can do the job, which I have to believe would be very, very difficult to actually find and prove, then and only then can you start looking outside the United States. And even then, I have a problem with that as a whole. But great reporting from the Washington Free Beacon. We'll post that on the on my Twitter account. That's a fascinating link, but that should go away entirely. I'm glad somebody's bringing that to the attention, that there are companies that are advertising on major platforms saying no U.S. citizens, no Americans are fit for this job. We don't even want to consider any applications from Americans. Coming up next, we got mailbag. We got a lot of emails to get to. tpt@tpusa.com if you'd like to send us your email, your thoughts, comments, concerns, criticisms. Also, go subscribe to our Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel. The hack is just type in JOBOB. You'll get all of the Turning Point Tonight online content by typing in the very, very odd and peculiar name of the host. It's actually very advantageous to trying to find things on the internet. All of the Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel, Rumble, X, Facebook, all the social media platforms. We'll be right back with your emails to round out the week and send you off into hopefully a glorious weekend. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
Reason we actually shortchange the gospel. 当教会以外的人看到教会里面有纷争的时候 when people outside the church see there's conflict within the
What is going on there? Okay, so the bald white guy is doing what appears to be the Korean translation, and what looks like the Korean guy is doing the English version. I gotta dig into that a little bit more. That's just funny. That's the headline there is appropriate. I'm not sure if you can see it over the lower third. What timeline is this? Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I do know it's funny though. Let's get some of your emails. This is from Anthony, tpt@tpca.com if you'd like to be included in the email mailbag. Also, if your emails are disgusting, terrible, bigoted, and horrible on all fronts, better chance of actually getting read here. Anthony, on the topic of Ilhan Omar being stupid or sinister, he says this: Omar isn't stupid, it's an act. The reason I know is I deal with this every day at the facility I work. These people, mainly mid-20s to mid-30-something years old, continue to break the rules on purpose to see how much they can get away with. That sounds like what Congresswoman Omar is doing. Then, when they get caught, they look like a deer in headlights. They do the Gen Z stare. Huh? What? I don't know. As if they don't understand what's going on. They simply act stupid to get away with it. It's their get-out-of-jail-free card. The liberals are using it everywhere, and it's working for them. Anthony, I'm inclined to agree with you on that. That's a very astute point, good observation, and try to get that out of your workplace to the extent that you're able to. Bonnie says this on the same topic. Hey, Joe Bob, she is sinister because it's in her country, in Somali's government, businesses, etc., make itself up to be corrupt. Yeah. That's like the whole thing in countries like Somalia is like you have to participate in the corruption or else you're going to be dirt poor. She is by nature corrupt, sinister at worst. She is stupid. Oh, she also said this is she's both. She is stupid. I think to think the country is to think that the corruption occurring regularly every day in her country, it goes completely unnoticed. Not like in our country. We hope she gets deported. That would be a sticky one, but I agree. Kerry says, stupid or deliberate, I'd like to present Congressman Omar. He says, as a Christian conservative fundamentalist, I would like to offer that she's just a stooge and a pawn of absolute evil. Yeah, there's that. Email tpt@tpusa.com on the topic of Governor Newsom begging for $40 billion from the federal government. Michael says, I live in California. I've lived here for 45 years. I'm conservative, lean towards common sense. I too wonder what Governor Newsom did with all of the money that he was given by the taxpayers and by the federal government. But it's not rocket science. The people running the states are crooks. Simple. The high-speed fail, which is a great pun, by the way, will never go over the grapevine. If you live in California, that makes total sense. Beverly also lives in California. She says, I watch your show almost every night. Good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Beverly. Also, as all of you should. Hell no, do not give California any money. She's actually getting really sick of the BS going on in here and is looking to potentially move. Geez, got a minute left. Linda says all the federal relief needs to go to the individual fire victims and completely bypass the California state as they try and grab money out of it. That is a good point. In the remaining time, I want to get to this regarding freaking car registration. Wanda says she lives in Kentucky. I mentioned yesterday I pay like $600 to register my 2018 Ford F-150. She lives in Kentucky, has a 2018 Dodge Journey. It costs her $20 to register. Great. Mark in Oklahoma says it's $132 for 2 years for registration of his car. Really making me feel good, guys. Thank you. And last but not least, Renee, just a nice little this is a nice little compliment. Thank you. Says, you make me smile, love your humor, keep those libs on their toes, keep up all the good work. Thank you. We are trying to here at Turning Point tonight. That's going to do it for us here on the show. That's going to do it for us this week. Have a fantastic weekend. Go outdoors, spend some time with some family. Kind of unplug until Monday, which is when we will see you next here on Turning Point tonight. See you then. God bless America. I didn't think I was a coffee snob, but turns out I'm a coffee snob. It's one last point. Exactly what I just said. I didn't think I was a coffee snob. Turns out I think I am. How I found this out was, first of all, I was late to the coffee game. I didn't start drinking coffee until I was in my 30s. And I've slowly become very accustomed to good coffee. And I think that happened kind of gradually. And therefore, like, I kind of forgot what bad coffee tasted like. I like everybody, started on bad coffee, just like, you know, the bulk coffee that you buy. And I'm not trying to disparage anybody's coffee preferences, but there's good coffee and there's bad coffee. And over the years, I have gone from a pot of coffee to French press to a mocha pot to an espresso maker, back to a coffee pot, but we got a nicer coffee pot. We got a pricey coffee pot, but it actually makes a huge difference, because I think there's some coffee pots that's just like highest heat possible, most water possible, and you got to end up using more beans. It's a whole thing. I didn't think I was a coffee snob. I would probably have categorized myself as more of an enthusiast. Like, I enjoy the process of making coffee and making it in a way that I like to drink it. I like everybody, probably started off with way too much sugar and way too much creamer. And I realized, like, this morning, that's primarily used to mask the taste of bad coffee, right? So gradually I started using less creamer, less sugar. But in the process of doing that, started buying nicer beans, started using the espresso machine, started using the nice pot of coffee maker that we now have. And this morning, we're running low on beans. We buy them from a local coffee shop here in town, and they're delicious. I love them. They're fantastic. What I didn't realize how much good coffee actually matters, because we were running low, needed a little bit more grounds to kind of make, you got a specific amount of water. You want to make sure that water isn't watery coffee at the end of it. You want to make sure there's, like, full, it's actually coffee. So in order to make up for the fact of the fact that we ran out of beans, about a third, maybe even a fourth of the coffee that I put in the filter, we had a Folgers bin, like the big Folgers bin that you get from Costco, and it was decaf, because we like decaf from time to time. Hadn't used that and maybe this is also probably to the point, hadn't used it for a while. It's probably a 6-month-old big canister of Folgers. Put about a quarter of the coffee grounds in that Folgers. I poured a cup of coffee, added my usual, like, half and half to it, took a sip and went, ugh, this is gross. I didn't know. I'm apparently a coffee snob. I apparently, in my process of my coffee journey, I realized this morning that, holy cow, I need good beans. I need good beans and a good coffee maker, or else I can't handle it. Even a minimal amount of what I would call bad coffee. Again, if you like that, that's fine. You do you. It's okay to like inferior things. But it effectively ruined the pot of coffee. And I had to go back to, like, flavored sweet creamer in order to make it tolerable, which was I didn't know that I got duped into being a total coffee snob, which I now know that I am. And I will wear that badge with honor. I do pride myself on, when we go to these horrible places around the country. Let's see. Most specifically, we were in Portland earlier this year. We were in Berkeley a couple weeks ago. I go and find, like, the bluest haired coffee barista. Like, I go into coffee shops where I know they hate me, or they would hate me if they knew, if only they knew. Because generally speaking, it's better coffee. It just is. Sorry, that's just the case. And maybe you like some conservative coffee brands. Those are all great. They're fantastic people. The blue-haired trans person behind the barista counter makes pretty dang good coffee. That's just the reality. But apparently I've grown accustomed to that. And I don't know what the next steps are. I don't know if the next steps are make sure you have good coffee on hand at all times, or if I should reintegrate myself to kind of your average run-of-the-mill coffee. I don't know, tbt@tbsa.com. Leave a comment in this video. How do you like your coffee? Do you have any, I don't know, am I too snooty? Am I too snobby now? I try not to be. I really try not to be. We don't generally have nice things around our house. But coffee apparently is one of them. Producer Glenn drinks a lot of coffee. I think when we were first starting this, we were kind of going throughout the format of the show, and one day, Glenn was like, "All right, I'll be right back." We're on a video call. It's like 11 a.m. He's like, "I gotta go refill the coffee." Like, refill? He's like, "Yeah, I'm on my second, third cup." Producer Glenn, do you have an aversion to bad coffee?
I was thinking, and I'd love to get you a pour over. I think that you would really appreciate that. I've been doing pour over lately.
Okay.
And maybe you need to revisit it. I feel like, so I had a Keurig. We got one as a wedding gift, and I'd always wanted one. So when I got married, that was like the golden opportunity. Put it on the list, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got that, and I did a Keurig for almost 10 years. We still have one. We're on our second Keurig. But I started getting a little weary of like microplastics because, the hot water and the plastic, it could, people say that that's not great for you. And I was like, oh, well, maybe not. So I also have a pour over, it's a single cup, goes on top of the mug.
Mm-hmm.
You put in the filter, the beans, the hot water. And it's such a deep, rich, much more intense flavor. Now, when I go back and like do a cup from the Keurig, it tastes so light and weak that it's very hard to enjoy. So I feel like, that might make me a bit of a snob. And I try to use better beans. I use the laziest better beans, so I don't grind my own beans. I like Black Rifle, which happens to be a conservative, generally conservative coffee company.
Yeah.
I'll also get Starbucks beans. I try not to get the cheapest beans. Usually they're cheap for a reason. So, but I'm not grinding my own stuff. I'm not buying I've done a few small batch coffee makers where they do a small batch, a small roast, and you get that. And that's usually pretty good quality. But I'm kind of midway. I'm mid snob.
So I'm as you're talking, I'm realizing I think I am full blown snob. I was talking with my uncle over Thanksgiving who roasts his own beans, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And now I'm pretty inclined. I think I'll probably get a bean roaster myself, which I think firmly puts me in the category of coffee snob. But we did in the vein of a pour over, we did our research and we got a coffee pot that effectively mimics the pour over, the way that it's done. It kind of it very, very slowly siphons coffee into a funneled filter, which is, we did our research to get a coffee pot that made the most, to resemble the most of a actual pour over pot. Now it does make a pot, so you do have to use more beans. It's not a single cup, and there is a warmer, but the settings are so that you don't burn it in the warmer. Anyways, I think as you're talking, I'm realizing I am going down the full blown coffee fanatic, which I hope that doesn't turn you into a lib. Right? That's not how that works, right? You kind of start as a lib and therefore gradually make good coffee. I
think it's an apolitical topic. I feel like it's an apolitical thing. It's like you could go either way, drinking it or not drinking it. It's just one of those things God gave us to enjoy. Anyone can enjoy it.
I'd say kind of, because I've had too many experiences where I go into the coffee shop that has the trans BLM flag, all of the things, and it is just head and shoulders better than the coffee shops that don't. I'm sorry, that's just my experience. It's anecdotal, but I have a lot of data sets to work on. Those are the coffee shops that I frequent, and as apolitical as I want coffee to be, libs just do it better. so there's that. Well, anyways, maybe over the course of time, Glenn, I will transition you into just a guy who can't even muster. He can't even choke down a Keurig. Maybe.
I'm getting there. They're gonna have to make a Keurig that mimics the pour over, and I'll try that. That would be interesting because Keurig is like A+ for convenience, but you have to cut something out to make it convenient. So it's a trade-off. Yeah. It's always a trade-off.
Yeah, you trade quality for convenience. That sounds like you were in favor of cheap Chinese goods instead of American-made products. Anyways, that'll do us without a chance for rebuttal. Have a great weekend. We will see you Monday. It's been Turning Point tonight. TPT@tpsa.com, or leave a comment wherever you're watching this video. Let us know, are you a coffee snob? Am I too snobby for the conservative side of the aisle? Should I dye my hair blue and get bigger earrings? Get a septum ring too. Maybe that might be in the cards if I start drinking coffee, or if I start too far down this road of coffee superiority. That'll do it. See you later. God bless America.